I stood in front of my bedroom mirror, my fingers fumbling with the delicate straps of my summer dress. The late afternoon sun poured through the blinds, streaking golden light across the room, but my mind was elsewhere. I had just finished setting the table for dinner, waiting for him to come inside from the garden where he was fixing the broken trellis, a chore he had taken on without me even asking. As I pulled one strap back over my shoulder, adjusting my bra underneath, my usually nimble fingers felt clumsy against the tiny clasp. Then, just as I thought I had it secured, the clasp on my other strap came undone. The dress slipped. For a fleeting moment, I stood frozen, staring at my reflection as the fabric pulled at my waist, leaving me in nothing but lace and the golden glow of the sun. And that's when I heard it, a soft knock on the doorframe. "Dinner smells amazing. Do you need?" I turned sharply, clutching the dress to my chest. There stood my stepson, Ben, framed by the doorway. His gaze lingered a second too long before he realized and quickly turned his head. "I'm so sorry," he said, his voice tight and hurried, like he'd forgotten how to breathe. "I didn't mean to." "It's fine," I cut him off, though the heat rising to my cheeks betrayed my calm tone. "The door must have been ajar." He nodded, backing away as if the air between us had suddenly become too thick. His eyes flickered up once to meet mine before he disappeared down the hall. I stood there for a moment, gripping the fabric of my dress, staring at the empty doorway, my heart pounding in a way that felt both foreign and familiar. I am 52. A widow for nearly 5 years now. Living in this sprawling house that feels too big and too quiet for just me. My late husband, Jason, left me with everything I needed: comfort, security, the kind of life most people dream of. But he also left me with an emptiness I hadn't anticipated, one that seemed to echo in every room and every mundane task. And then there's Ben. Jason's son from his first marriage. He's 27 now, tall, with a quiet confidence that is both endearing and maddening. When Jason passed, Ben insisted on staying in my life. "Family doesn't just stop," he had said at the funeral, his hand warm on mine, his grief mirroring my own. Over the years, he has been my lifeline in ways I didn't expect, fixing the fence, clearing the gutters, carrying heavy boxes up from the basement. We fell into an easy rhythm, one where his company felt more like a balm for the loneliness I tried so hard to hide. But lately, I've noticed something. It's in the way his eyes linger a second too long when I hand him a glass of iced tea. The way he stands a little closer than necessary when we look over old family photo albums. I've tried to dismiss it as my imagination, chalking it up to the way grief plays tricks on a lonely heart. But after what just happened, after the way his voice hitched, the way his cheeks flushed, I'm not so sure anymore. That night at dinner, the air between us was thick with something unspoken. He sat across from me, his sleeves rolled up, his tan forearms resting casually on the edge of the table as he complimented the roast chicken I had made. I smiled, nodding at his words, but I couldn't focus. All I could think about was the moment in the doorway. The way his eyes had widened before quickly looking away, like he'd seen something he shouldn't have. Like he wanted to look longer, but knew he couldn't. The thing is, I wasn't as angry as I should have been. Shouldn't I be? Shouldn't I feel outraged or embarrassed? The next morning, I woke up unsettled. The house was still, save for the faint chirping of birds outside my window. I lay there for a while, staring at the ceiling, trying to push away the memory of yesterday. Ben had left early. I heard his truck pull out of the driveway before the sun had fully risen. He had texted me later, a short message about needing to take care of something in town. No mention of last night. No awkward apology. Just space. I should have been relieved. Instead, I felt something close to disappointment. As I moved through the house, tidying up dishes from the night before, my fingers brushed against the empty spot at the table where he had sat. My mind wandered back to his voice, the way he had looked at me, the tension neither of us wanted to acknowledge. I had spent years mastering the art of solitude, finding comfort in my own company, convincing myself that I didn't need more. But lately, I wasn't so sure. That afternoon, I found myself in the garden, kneeling beside the trellis Ben had repaired. I ran my fingers along the wood, remembering how he had stood here, sleeves rolled up, sweat beading along his brow as he worked in the sun. I heard the crunch of gravel from the driveway. I turned to see his truck pulling in. For a split second, I considered going inside, avoiding whatever this was before it could become something neither of us could ignore. But I didn't move. Ben stepped out, pausing when he saw me. He hesitated before finally making his way over. "Hey," he said, shoving his hands in his pockets. "Hey." We stood there for a beat too long, neither of us sure how to fill the silence. Finally, he gestured toward the trellis. "Holding up okay?" I nodded. "Looks great." "Thank you." He nodded, rocking back on his heels. "Good." Another pause. Another moment of hesitation. Then, as if he had made a decision, Ben exhaled and looked at me directly. "I didn't mean to, yesterday," he started, his voice low. I swallowed. "I know." But, he hesitated, his eyes searching mine. My breath caught in my throat. "But what?" Ben finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper.
"But I can't stop thinking about it."
His words settled between us like a weight neither of us knew how to carry. I looked away, pretending to focus on the tree behind him, but my heart pounded in my chest. "Ben, this isn't." I hesitated, my throat dry. "This isn't something we should be talking about." He stepped closer. "But we are. And we both know why." I swallowed hard. "It's just emotions and confusion. We've been through a lot." Ben shook his head. "It's not confusion. And it's not just me." My pulse quickened. The air between us felt thick, charged with something unspoken for far too long. I took a slow step back. "This has to stop." His eyes searched mine, looking for something, maybe doubt, maybe permission. "Do you want it to?" I should have said yes. I should have shut this down, walked away, made it clear that this was impossible. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, silence stretched between us, saying more than I ever could. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't want to make things hard for you." "You already have," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Ben nodded, his jaw tightening. "I'll go, if that's what you want." I opened my mouth, but no words came. I hated how uncertain I felt and how much I didn't want him to leave. After a beat, he nodded, stepping back. "I'll see you later." I watched him walk away, feeling like something irreversible had just happened. The line we weren't supposed to cross was already behind us, and there was no going back now. The house felt emptier that night. I tried to busy myself with meaningless tasks, washing dishes that were already clean, folding laundry that didn't need folding. But my mind kept drifting back to Ben, to the way he had looked at me, to the silence that had spoken louder than words ever could. Sleep didn't come easy. I tossed and turned, my body restless, my thoughts looping in endless circles. When I finally drifted off, my dreams were filled with fragmented images, Ben's gaze, his hesitation, the tension between us that refused to fade. Morning arrived too soon. Sunlight spilled through the curtains, and I sat up, rubbing my temples. I needed clarity. Distance. Something to pull me away from the thoughts that had taken root in my mind. I made coffee, the aroma filling the kitchen, grounding me in the simplicity of routine. But as I stood by the window, staring out at the garden, I saw his truck pull into the driveway. My stomach tightened. Ben stepped out, hesitated for a moment, then walked toward the house. I turned away before he could see me watching. A knock at the door. Soft. Almost unsure. I took a steadying breath before opening it. "Hey." He offered a small, hesitant smile. "Hey." We stood there for a moment, neither of us speaking, the weight of yesterday still heavy between us. He started, but stopped, running a hand through his hair. "I just wanted to check in. Make sure we're okay." I forced a smile. "Of course we are." But we both knew that wasn't entirely true. Ben hesitated, his hands shoved into his pockets. "Can I come in?" I should have said no. I should have made an excuse, told him I was busy. But instead, I stepped aside, allowing him in. He walked past me, his presence filling the room in a way that felt too big, too close. I shut the door behind him, the soft click echoing between us. Ben glanced around, as if looking for something to say. I didn't sleep much last night. I let out a short laugh, though there was no humor in it. Neither did I. His gaze met mine, and something unspoken passed between us again. A silent acknowledgement of what we were both trying to ignore. I cleared my throat, desperate to break the moment. Do you want coffee? He nodded. Yeah, that'd be nice. I moved to the kitchen, my hands trembling slightly as I poured 2 cups. Ben leaned against the counter, watching me. I could feel his eyes on me, feel the tension stretching between us like a wire pulled too tight. As I handed him his cup, our fingers brushed. A simple touch, fleeting and accidental. But it sent a spark through me, one I couldn't ignore. Ben exhaled, setting his cup down. This is getting hard. I swallowed. I know. He took a step closer. Tell me to leave. Tell me to stop. I opened my mouth, but the words wouldn't come. Because I didn't want him to. Instead, I whispered, I can't. And just like that, the last bit of distance between us disappeared. The moment stretched, fragile and dangerous. My breath hitched as Ben's fingers grazed my wrist, tentative but charged with something uncontainable. We can't, I murmured, but my voice lacked conviction. Ben's jaw tightened. Then tell me to go. I didn't. I couldn't. Instead, I closed my eyes, feeling the warmth of his touch linger longer than it should. A sharp knock at the front door made us both jump apart. My heart pounded. Who? Ben exhaled, stepping back. You should answer it. I hesitated before moving to the door, pulse thrumming in my ears. As I pulled it open, a familiar face greeted me, my neighbor, Sarah, holding a covered dish and wearing a polite smile. I thought you might want some company, she said. I forced a smile, glancing back at Ben, who had retreated to the kitchen. That's very kind of you. Sarah's eyes flickered between us, sensing something beneath the surface. Is everything okay? I hesitated. Of course. But deep down, I knew everything had changed.